right now we've got our next talk. Nachiket, I see you up and on the stage. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. I wish I had your energy.
Well, sweet. I know you've been here with us for a while. Hopefully, you're enjoying it. I'm going to let you share your screen and get rocking and rolling, and we will have your talk coming in. We've got another person coming into this too, right? Yeah, there we go. Hey, I thought there was two people on this talk. I just wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, let's start sharing screen, Piyush, and we'll get started. Uh,
Awesome.
While he's doing that, I'll start introductions. So I'm Nachiket Mehta. Hello, everyone. So excited to be here. I'm very passionate about this topic. Uh, it's pleasure to be part of this community. Piyush with me is from Wayfair. By the way, I left Wayfair a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a former head of data and analytics for global operations and enterprise now. But Piyush, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So, hello everyone. I am Piyush. I'm a senior manager at Wayfair. I lead the data and AI enablement platforms at Wayfair. And my team composition is software engineers, data engineers, and AI engineers working towards building the next gen data and AI platform at Wayfair. And happy to share about our data mesh journey today.
Awesome. So for today's agenda, we're gonna cover, just for those who don't know about Wayfair, just a quick overview of Wayfair, and then we'll jump right into Wayfair's data mesh journey that started a few years ago. And as most of you may know, it's not just a technical, it's a social-technical paradigm shift. So we're gonna talk about both the technical as well as social aspect of it, and then what's going on next, right? And so we'll leave some time for the Q&A at the end. But with that, I'll have Piyush talk about the Wayfair.
So Wayfair, we are one of the world's largest online retailer for home. So if you are looking to decorate your home, give a look to Wayfair. So Wayfair is enabling our customers to realize their dream home journey by the big catalog, million of products in our catalog, and with our with our different brand sites like All Modern, Birch Lane, and our physical retail stores. So we opened our one of the Wayfair marquee stores in Chicago, and the next one is coming up in Atlanta. So if you are around Chicago area, give it a look. It's an awesome experience. Moving on to Wayfair. Wayfair is not just an e-commerce company, but it is the company the company has technology at heart. We have a wide selection of product and customized user experience. So everything we do at Wayfair is driven by data. So our data platform is part of the whole customer journey, starting from the search, Rex, and personalization to our sales and service. Uh, and with the Gen AI picking up, we have been actively influencing some of the products which we are working on with Gen AI. Muse is one of the products where our customers can curate their home using Gen AI. If you have not taken a look at it, please take a look at it. It's fun using Muse. The tech transformation journey, which Wayfair has been, the data tooling platform has been really helping with the speeding up of the tech transformation using Gen AI. So moving forward, like I will hand it over to Nachiket. Nachiket has been the flag bearer of data mesh at Wayfair and has been with us on this journey of last 4 to 5 years of establishing the data mesh platform or establishing the data as a product ownership and impacting the whole cultural change at Wayfair. So Nachiket.
Thank you, Piyush. So yeah, for those who don't know about Wayfair's history, there's an operational side and there's an analytical side. Operationally, Wayfair was one of the largest SQL Server deployment in the world, and it came at its own cost. There were a lot of replication happening when we needed data for analytics at the time when company was growing really fast. data was democratized in a way where everyone had access to most of the data except very sensitive data. But that created a lot of sprawl, right? And then in early 2019, we created a separate Google Cloud enterprise data environment called Eden to address some of this like replication issues. But before we knew, in kind of couple of years, it grew significantly as well. So while we addressed certain issue to not have run analytics on kind of operational data or applications of that, we had a different problem which cost us like a lot of money. And then also it had its own accountability and trust issues. Right? So as you see on the numbers here, they're like drastic. It's petabytes of data, but very few ownership and visibility issues. So if you go to the next slide, Piyush talks about some of the pain points that both producers and consumers had. From consumers' perspective, when they were using data to drive some key business decisions and insights, and then they had issues, they did not know whom to reach out to all the time. They were reliant on some central data teams. They in turn were reliant on some other data producers. They in fact had other kind of service connections built in. So there was a little wild web in a way. Mean time to remediate was really more than 4 days for when we identify issues like a storefront changes that made missing click attribution, or there are instances where there are supply chain forecasting errors were not as accurate, and then it's not yielding into more accurate actuals. So there are a lot of issues. And then same way, like data producers had their own problems where there are thousands of consumers consuming their data. They did not know whom to reach out to when they were trying to make this like systematic and digital transformation related changes. And the context, the lack of context, right? There are instances where we did not have like very common enterprise level data model at hand. So everyone was using their own kind of for their own application, their own dedicated data models. There are instances where a box that is traveling from inbound all the way to the customers and returns had like 12 different identifiers across the system, right? So no common kind of context and ontology were enforced. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about our journey and how it all started, right? So for those who don't know about data mesh, it's really socio-technical approach. We started along with our journey of decentralization and moving from monolith to microservices. Strategic part is very important, and so is the social and technology aspect. So when we started our journey back in 2018-19 to really move into this more kind of decentralized domain-driven architecture approach, that's where we set a good foundation at all of the technology org level. And then, by the way, we don't have a central data office that manages all the functions, right? So our high-level data teams were federated within the high-level domains. So a group of us came together to identify how we can address this issue. Since I was leading the supply chain domain at that time, we started with supply chain domain as early adopters, worked with the producers and consumers of that domain, a lot of applications to identify what problem we are trying to solve, and let's associate that to a business value that we're facing some impact. Last 2 years, we made a significant progress. That's where a lot of social top-down buy-in, bottom-up evangelizing happened. There were instances where we ran a lot of town halls and tech talks and wrote a lot of white papers, worked alongside software engineers to train and build this data as a product mindset. So that helped us establishing this whole data contract, that shift left approach, associated that with the data catalog piece, and then got a wider adoption across enterprise. So that included all the domains. And then obviously now with this good foundation built, we're really like reaping the benefits quickly on any initiatives, any all-right initiatives that are kind of tagged to a data product, a consumer data product. And then you can have a full end-to-end lineage that goes back all the way to who owns the data. So just to try to address those ownership and visibility issues, things are in motion. And then we are building and extending the rigor of our software DevOps process to what we call internally DIAL framework to be applied on the data products as well. So that's just very high level journey. We'll definitely talk more about the technical aspects. For that, I will hand it over to Piyush to talk about tech.
Thanks, Nachiket. So when we think about the data mesh platform, we think of it as a central place where we bring both data and establish a communication method between the producers and the consumers. The there are different aspects what we took into building the data platform. The first thing what I want to talk about is data contract. So data contract is one thing which helped us solve the problem of the lack of context, ownership, and visibility, all three what Nachiket pointed out. So while we are building the data contract, one thing I want to call out is why will somebody come onto the platform being a producer and there are so many different domains working on their different timelines, different applications. So the things which brought them onto the platform was the ease of creating the data contract, how self-serve it is, and then also the ease of building the data quality rules. So how while building the contract, while building the standards, you are getting the benefit of better applications and better alerting and monitoring on top of that. So that is one thing which how Nachiket mentioned, the bottom-up approach. So how do you make it easy for the engineers, application engineers building the tool to come onto the platform, and then also make it seamless integrate with their application programming so that they don't have to take a different step to go to create a contract or establish it as a product mindset. One thing which we slowly realized while building the platform was how the overall platform evolved into a data marketplace. So we started hearing from feedback from the consumer side of the word that, hey, it is easy to find a data, easy to discover the data assets which are part of the platform. So slowly we started growing this, the platform which started from one domain to more of a generic data marketplace where now folks are trying to discover the data assets before going and reinventing the wheel. So that is another thing we saw on the platform. The third thing is how easily you can control the access of the data. So it is more towards like everyone, every department, every domain is at different stage of their journey or their application programming. So we integrated the data access onto the platform. So if you're building an application and you are creating a contract, you can, at the same time, you can control your data access through the platform. One thing we recently saw part of being on, like when the Gen AI boom was coming and Wayfair was moving towards innovation with Gen AI, a lot of our Gen AI data application, data bot or data agents really got benefit from having one centralized context window or a semantic layer for their agents or bot to build the context from. So for example, like first they get the quality of data to train on or to work on, and then second, the context building through the schemas what we have or the catalog what we have around the data assets really helped us the data part of the Gen AI or data bots to build that context fast. So moving on to the architecture, there are three pieces to the architecture how we look at. One is the self-serve nature of creating the contract. So how we can remove the friction of creating the contract. So our approach has been meet where the application teams are or data producers are on the like they can create a contract through the CLI, they can create the contract through a Terraform module. They can be a proactive about validating the contract through the build guide plugin, or they can be reactive through our schema validation. So once the contract is onboarded, along with the contract, you have the ability to create the quality rules as well. So we use Dataplex for our quality rules. So once the producers create the contracts, enable the quality rules, there is a data contract service which coordinates the schema validation or the contract validation and the quality validation and reports it to Data Hub. Data Hub is our marketplace where you can get the current state of a data asset What are the quality rules enabled? What are the contracts enabled? How many times it has violated the contract? And at the same time, we also have the notification built in based on how an application or data producers want to do it. Do they want it with Slack? Is the data asset a critical asset where they want to set it as high tier and have PagerDuty integration? One thing which I specifically want to point out is Taxon, which is our ontology platform. So we were running into issues while establishing standards on our data model. So that is where we did build a homegrown ontology platform, which is Taxon, which enables the domain data model managed by our domain data stewards and also helps us build the knowledge graph, which has also helped us building the context of our GenAI application. We are running short on time, so I will skip and take the questions in the last. Just one last call out. It takes a village to build the platform and the maturity what we have achieved on the platform. Thanks to my team. And also, we have been working with Data Hub and Gable throughout the journey to understand the standard, contribute back, and at the same time mature the whole shift left concept. I will hand it over to Nachiket to talk about some of the organizational transformation and then wrap this up.
Piyush. Yeah, so organizationally, this is like with a few changes we made that is kind of innovative and it worked out really well that may help you all is one thing is instead of having the central data teams to drive this both on the producer and consumer side, I carved out a small team called embedded data engineers, and they came up with like this whole checklist, the manifesto to and make sure that there is truly domain-driven data ownership owned by the source data producers. And one of those kind of checklists was making sure that data contract is established. They have their own project, a dedicated project where they own maintain their events or APIs or even like a flat tables that are treated as a product, and all of them should have data contracts. So that worked out really well. They acted as a consultants, working on one domain at a time, and then slowly grew into more automation to cover more domains. So that really drove this data as a product mindset on product and engineering teams, including product managers who really consider data not as a byproduct, but really like their own data product. And then data stewards, the Taxon, like Piyush mentioned, played a key role where we associated or we created a common place to register your domain models and then ensure that they are incorporated into schema, parts of the data contract. But then it also helped us in building more context around LLMs. So when people consumers are asking more plain, simple English questions, we could leverage those contexts to translate from text to SQL and give them the results much faster insights instead of going through the traditional way of doing it. And then service mentality and just making sure the business impact is driving all the priorities. So what's next? I just want to call out that I think our shift left approach is well on the way, adopted by the organization. But shift right is where we are kind of also focusing on. It's not one or the other, both are equally important. We're just focusing on the consumer data products, packaging that consumer data product and showing the full lineage going all the way where data is produced and vice versa. For data producers to understand who their consumers are, because now they are aware of their consumers and the business impact and the use cases. So that's what's happening. And then the next slide, we just have quick takeaways for you all. Main thing to call out, do not ignore the cultural change and transformation, right? It's no matter how much you invest in technology, that is very important. The adoption is very important, like Chad was talking about it earlier. We wrote a lot of white papers. We actually combine best data principles and product principles and combine them and evangelize that concept to meet the users where they are, right? If it's a data producer, they have their own problems of visibility. So we explain that aspect, and consumers, we kind of consider their pain points and kind of evangelize that aspect. Tech platform side of things, investments we made really help us in tech transformation aspect, the domain model store, and things like that. And where we are going with is like, how can we scale generating the data contracts automatically using Gen AI and things like that. Governance, the Taxon we already talked about, it provides a good federated and the domain autonomy balance. And at the end of the day, like, do not treat this as like a tech sponsored initiative. Aligned with the leaders, aligned with the top business priorities, have the business focus and problems at the center, and then connect all this kind of solutions at the end of the day. And this is not an ending process. So it's a lot of more work to do as more and more problems will be identified as we move from data DevOps to AI ops. But that's what I just want to leave you all with, and happy to answer any questions.
Woohoo! All right. So we already got some questions trickling through, and I really appreciate you all for giving this awesome talk. First question from Pete in the chat is, was your team the embedded data architects, or did the embedded data architects report to their respective departments?
That's a good question. So I think it's a little bit of both. So there are the embedding is more the central, like the team that I created that were more like the data architects who also understood the software world much better, so they can really cross-train. So instead of fishing for them, they can really teach them how to fish and then create that. I think that previous talk we were talking about whether it's a data engineer becoming a full stack data engineer versus the other way, but we went on that route to really make a full stack engineer really align with more data architecture and all. And then many times the engineers, right? Our goal was not just to target the architect, like senior level profiles, but how like L1, L2, those engineers also treat data as a product, right? So that's where the ontology piece came in, where the senior folks focus on the data stewardship and defining the data model in one place. And then they can leverage, they don't need to have that architecture knowledge, but they can leverage, rely on that tool through their like CLI that they are working with or the code gen, and then they can be empowered that way. So it's not limited to the top senior folks. Everyone is kind of empowered to do that.
Right on. Anything to add to that since we got two folks on here, or should I hit the next question?
But I think Nachiket covered it right. It is just not one way. It's mostly you move the data functions closer to the application teams, and that's where embedding the data engineers helped. Rather than having a centralized data engineering team, the more you move the data practices closer to the application teams, they build that they build that thought process of owning the data as a product and learning the best data practices rather than making it as an afterthought. You can think of it as more of like, I'm writing an application, why not think about like how the data would be consumed? So the whole shift left concept, embedding the data engineers enables that.
All right, so I got another question coming through here from Paul. When you say it takes a village to build a data function as mature as Wayfair, what is the size of the team? What kind of village are we talking about here?
I can start and probably Nachiket can jump in. So actually the team which started building the platform was very small and was like 4 engineers iterating, working as a tiger team with all our domain partners. Like Nachiket team was on the platform, we were 4 engineers building it. There were other engineers plugged from the domain teams so that we can get the real-time feedback. So team was small, close to four engineers, and then a Tiger team had 1 engineer from each of the domains. So that's how we started building up the platform. What I mean by village is we were working with a lot of our partners. In this case, we are using Data Hub, and we were like discussing, Nachiket was discussing with Chad on overall how the design strategy and influencing the design overall the platform. So working with Google, Data Hub, and also some of the folks at Gable, that's what I meant by taking a village. The team was very small and very focused on executing on this on the actual on the ground. So it's not about the size of the team executing, but when I mean village is the overall ecosystem what we were building along with external partners and Google.
Excellent.
Yeah, and just to kind of share the scope of Wayfair, right? Wayfair was very engineer heavy, tech heavy organization. So there are like about a couple of thousand engineers, and there are about thousands of consumers internally, like who are really supporting suppliers or customers or internal stakeholders through the function. So from data producer and data consumer side, there were a lot. And then the team that built it, like Piyush said, there's a smaller team, really group of very smart people. That's what Wayfair does best, right? Hire very best talent. And then they partnered with folks like we mentioned to really build this innovative platform and evangelize this. And evangelizing took a lot of other leaders and collaborations to happen, right? That's where the social part comes in.
So speaking of that evangelism, I think one thing that was a question that came up in the some of the last talks is who spearheads this initiative and then who owns it?
Yeah, it depends. I think anyone who is passionate about this topic is a good initiator, right? And that's what happened in our case. And then you have to identify the people who are facing the same, who share the same passion and who are facing the similar challenges, right? Like in our case, it was really the central team that initiated this, the central data team that initiated, because many times they were in the center of both the producer and consumer. No matter how much work you are doing, your data is nobody's problem, but then when something goes wrong, it's everybody's problem, or it's kind of blame it on the central team. So that's where
I need
like
that on a shirt. That is,
exactly.
sorry
But
to interrupt, but that was too good not to. Data is nobody's problem until it's everyone's problem.
yeah, and that's reality, and not just with Wayfair. I know many large organizations face the same thing, right? Like consumers are never satisfied and say, "No, I have perfect data to drive my business value. Thank you so much." It's a thankless job. We all know that. And same way, producers, they don't care about data, right? They care about like what applications and business value they are driving directly, and just bringing them closer was the main driver. And then talking in the language of both these personas like really helped us evangelize this a lot, right? Where we were meeting them where they are and then bringing the right thought leaders and kind of voices, active voices in this, that really helped drive this culture change.
All right, guys, there are some really good questions still coming through in the chat. I'm going to ask one more and then we got to jump to our next awesome talk with Sarah. I hear a lot of discussion around engineering teams, but when you have a strong business analyst community who want to self-serve and manage their own world, how are companies enabling this, or are they just rebranding analysts as engineers?
That's a very good question. And I think we did not differentiate, like I know some people say like producers are really software engineers and consumers are analyst community. First thing what we did was, hey, depending on the use case, you could have a software engineer as a producer and another software engineer as a consumer, or you could have an analyst who is producing some data, right? You are doing some gold record creation in medallion architecture, and then there is reverse ETL happening where that is integrated for ML, AI kind of work. And then the analyst becomes a producer and the others become consumers, right? So no matter what your use cases are, what role you play, whenever you are exchanging the data and changing the form of the data asset, you need to have a data contract. And that kind of enables this daisy chain of handshake that everyone needs to follow. But the second part of the question is, what about the analysts, that they are engineers and all? Yes, I think that's where the world and technology is going, right? Like with AI enablement, like I think, and the generation changing, the analyst part can also be automated to a certain extent. To get the insights or the business value out of data it takes much less time than the traditional way of moving data from on multiple places.
Excellent. Well, we'll keep it moving, but there's a few Q&A questions that are coming through, especially around what you would optimize in your 6-year journey that I would love to see. If you guys can stick around and type it in the chat, that would be incredible. For now, though, I see Mark popped back up on screen.